how education institutions can be set up, how they can be run, and how they can be growing.
Under full capacity, what percent of the revenue has to go into salaries? What percentage has to be retained for future expansions?
What is your clientele? What is your geography around you? What is the paying capability of the people? So it's not a one-dimensional decision.
You have taken it to a very different level. You moved from SSC to ICSC. Now you opened up another option for the students in terms of the IB part. A student strength today of over 8,000. There are 4,000 of them with the waiting list as well. How did that expansion actually happen?
And if the schools are able to fulfill that, then going from 0 to 500 or 500 to 5,000 is very easy.
What do financial institutions, banks, or NBFC like yours look for as a qualifier to lend money to any educational institution?
Hello, welcome to this podcast series called Progress Mantras, brought to you by Profectus Capital, which is India's premier MSME-oriented financing, non-banking finance company. Profectus Capital, which is now about 7 years old, and we have funded several thousands of MSMEs in this country in various sectors to help them grow and go to the next level in terms of their journey. About 25% of Profectus Capital's book actually comes from funding schools, affordable schools which want to go to the next level. And we have funded over the past 7 years more than 700 schools and helped them to grow in their journey. During this course of the journey, we have learned a lot about what really takes to make a great institution and how to make sure that the children are prepared for a better tomorrow in terms of this country. And we will like to share that experience with you, and very importantly to help us learn a little more about this particular sector and to make sure that the aspiring educationists are able to take away something from this series. We have got three very distinguished speakers with us as well, whom I would like to introduce one by one. To start with, I would like to introduce a brother duo to you. The brothers are actually running this organization called the Children's Academy Group of Schools, and they have a student strength today of over 8,000, and believe it or not, there are 4,000 of them with the waiting list as well. So that kind of speaks for the popularity and the goodwill that the school has been able to create. And the people behind that, Mr. Rohan Bhat, who is the chairperson of the group of institutions, and Mr. Rohit Bhat, who is the CEO of the institution. It is my privilege to interact with them and introduce them to you. So, like everybody else, Mr. Rohan Bhat also started as a teacher, and then over a period of time has evolved into philanthropist and educationist and somebody who's a kind of a role model as far as the education industry itself is concerned. And this particular school was started by their father, the late Mr. V.V. Bhat, when they moved from Udupi to Mumbai in 1970. So the institution is about 55 years old as we speak. And Mr. Rohan Bhat has taken over the mantle from his father and taken the school from one level to a completely different level altogether. He also is a treasurer of the MISA, or the Members of the International Schools Association, a body that represents over 100 schools in the Cambridge board. So obviously, there is a lot that we can learn from him, and assisting him in this entire journey, and of course creating his own little space in this environment is Mr. Rohit Bhat, who is the CEO of the group of institution. And again, he also started like everybody else in the family as a teacher. He brings across a very forward-thinking approach. The emphasis is more on building the child as a holistic person. I think that's the journey that really marks this institution as a different one from anyone else. Mr. Rohan Bhat and Mr. Rohit Bhat today are running a group of institutions called the Children's Academy Group of Schools, which have 4 schools under their belt which offer the ICSE curriculum. And they've also now started to give an option for the children to have some amount of international education through an option to go into IB. So a lot of things to, to their credit, the two brothers have. The third speaker, again a teacher to start with, but he's taken a very different route in his life. He's become a consultant to schools over a period of time. So while he has learnt what it really takes to be a teacher and to build a school, he's using that education and his knowledge to help other schools to be set up and run in a manner which is really idealistic in the right way. Dr. Dhirendra Mishra, who started off with a very small town called Piparia in Madhya Pradesh, which is somewhere near the Panchmadi foothills. And from there, he is now associated with more than, he helped set up more than 65 schools. He has set up an institution called the Life Educare, which is his consulting firm. Life actually is a short form or an acronym of looking into the future of education. So LIFE, very rare combination. You normally have teachers usually becoming teachers and educationists and researchers, but very few people actually go into the area of consulting. And to the credit of Dr. Mishra, that's exactly what he's done. And he's set up all kinds of schools, CBSE, IB, IGCSE, and he's trained over 5,000 teachers in this country. So I hope that we will have a wonderful experience in talking to these gentlemen and learning a lot from them, so that we are able to imbibe those experiences and generalize that to our own context and see how we can actually set up good schools and run good schools. And if you already have a school, how to take it to the next level. So, Mr. Rohan, but it's a pleasure to have you with us. And your family having such a rich history. How did it really start, and when did you really move to Mumbai, and how did your father set up the school, and so on and so forth? So if you can just recount the history a little bit.
Yeah, thank you very much. Uh, our family history goes back quite a lot. Uh, it the we went to our family came into the education industry as such, if you can call, or career, since my great grandfather's time. My great grandfather started a school in a small place called Kadiyali in Udupi district in Karnataka, and he, my father, after that, my grandfather, of course, and then my father, all of them studied in the same school. And my father also completed his education there, and he went on to complete his bachelor's of arts from the Mysore University. Then he joined the school as a teacher. During the course, he also completed his bachelor of education, B.Ed, and then also his MA from Mysore University. Went on to become the headmaster of the school and carried on there for some more years. And maybe somewhere around 1958 or so, he wanted to explore the city of dreams of India, that is Bombay as it was known previously, and he shifted to Bombay. Here he started his journey again as a teacher in a school in Vadala called NKES, that is National Kannada Education Society. And then from there, he also was working as a night high school teacher. And he went on to become the principal of the night high school teacher, the headmaster, in fact, what you call. And after that, he joined education department of the BMC, the Municipal Corporation of Greater Bombay at that time again. And he was the inspector of schools. During that journey, he somehow, because he was the inspector, he had to go to a lot of schools. He saw a lot of schools. He experienced a lot of schools, and he learnt about many things. Somehow he felt that many of the schools are not giving the complete holistic education, which was his way thinking of the way education should be imparted to students. He found education was very bookish, and not that 360-degree development which has to happen is missing. So he started having his dreams about having his own school where he can bring his own philosophy into play. And from there started the journey of Children's Academy as such.
Wow.
So in 1970, he sold his house, my mom's jewelry, and he took a loan. With that time, it was called hundi. So he took loans also from family, friends, and he bought a few shops, 4 shops also, in a residential building on the ground floor, and called Ishwar Bhawan building at that time. And his journey started in 1970. After that, it grew very fast. I was the first student of Children's Academy. I was in grade 1. So my journey started along with him from the day one.
Very interesting. Very interesting. In fact, starting off a school, obviously he was a teacher and part of a BMC inspecting schools and things like that. But to set up a school, obviously, you did mention how he mustered up the initial capital and all that. But that is one side of it. But having done all of that, just to make the school itself into an institution is a very difficult task to do from grounds up. How did you manage and what were the kind of challenges that he faced and how did he really overcome that?
I think the main challenge was the finance in the space. So it grew in, of course, all the shops in that building were slowly in the next 2-3 years taken over, because I think the people resonated with his way of education. And this is one of the first private schools as such. Before that, there were usually English medium schools, were all the church schools or the Catholic schools, which we call. Private English medium schools were few, and that too unaided. People had to pay to go to school, basically. So it was a challenge, but I think people understood the difference between the way he taught in his school and what was happening in the other schools. So it grew very fast. The number of children, so he had to actually, it was like one building here, and then after a few hundred meters, another small building with another few shops, and that is how it basically grew. So these were the two major challenges. Teaching as such was not a challenge to him, because training teachers was not a challenge to him. It was into his blood, I think. It was just in his DNA. So that was not the challenge. These were the challenges, and it took a lot of time for that to sort out. It was over a period of time. He did buy a small plot of land. Again, no idea about what is what are the requirements, legal requirements, BMC requirements. So a lot of problems. He was not able to get the permission to start the building. He made some structures, was demolished by the BMC. So a lot of struggles in this way. So, but he went on, and of course there were family, there was friends. Somehow the school, a school building that is his dream, came true or around in 1984, 85. That's the time the building construction started, and it went on in a slow phased manner till 1987, 98, 1988, where the entire building was ready. So it was quite a very difficult journey, but that's how he was. He had his never say die spirit. Like he never let anything bog him down. And his focus was education. So he was basically doing all those things, and there were people helping him out to for the other things.
The sheer quality of his teaching, I think, made a big difference to the students.
Exactly,
And then it
exactly,
was kind of a
exactly.
pull factor,
Yes.
which made
That's why
the life a
group
lot
goes
easier.
so fast.
Understood.
The struggles, of course, the major struggles were the finance and the space. He had to arrange for finance. That, as I sold his flats and jewelry and loans and all those things. The next struggle was to get the students to be convinced, the parents to be convinced to join his school. It's one of the first private schools where the parents would have to actually pay the fees to study, unlike all the aided schools at that time. So during that time, in the first initial couple of years, he had to actually go from house to house. He and his very fast friend, Mr. Kukian, So this the only friend he actually had. Like, so they went from house to house convincing people that education is going to be different here, and this is what they should be giving their children. So the first 2 years were a little bit of a struggle, but after that, parents were convinced about what his idea of education was, his idea of holistic education. One of the first schools to have huge annual days, even at that time. And so the dance, drama, music, sports, something which they had not seen too much of at that time. So that's how he brought that holistic education into this. And that is where the numbers started growing. And after that, numbers were not a problem, but space was the problem after that. In the initial years, the space was a major problem. So actually, our house was one of the rooms in the school of the 4, 5 rooms that we had. So part of it, the window side used to be the fee counter, and the behind the window part, that used to be our bedroom. So
Yeah.
that bedroom used to be an office room in the morning, and night it used to get converted to a bedroom. So the toilets were the after the students, and there was also a night high school running at that time. So dad used to clean up the toilets for us to then go and then have our bath after everybody left at night. So those were the days of struggle. But he was what he was like. He was a man who never backed out of any hard work, never troubled him. He never had a holiday as such. I think till I grew up and he had the just he was able to say, okay, he's there to take care. And of course, he had a very good team of people who were looking at that. Maybe I think when I started growing up, maybe after my college and all, that's the time he actually started taking a holiday. Otherwise, he was in the office because office and school were in the same room. So there was no holiday for him.
So such an inspiring story. Now, to turn to Mr. Rohit, but now obviously that was the journey where your father actually started off and built the first school. Now you have taken it to a very different level. Now 4 institutions. How did that expansion actually happen? And what was your really success story behind
So
it?
by the time 1984, when Rohan said Daddy managed to complete the construction of the building, the school was so popular that there were, I think, around 4 to 5,000 students in that same building, and a majority of students, approximately around 20% students, were coming from Kandivali. So Malad, and we had already the name of the school, the popularity of the school had spread to the nearby suburb, and there were buses coming from Kandivali to Malad. So by the time the building got constructed, Daddy decided that we required to expand to the neighboring Kandivali area, because maximum students were coming from that area. So I had not yet joined the school. So Rohan and Daddy looked for a school for a plot in Kandivali, and at that time, I think it was 1989, he found a plot in Kandivali, which is the Ashok Nagar school, where the next second school came over, and parents were requested to move to that school because, they also found it beneficial because they would save on the money of transport, transport fees. And school we started with the KG in 1989, and by 1991 we had the primary section also. So I joined the school in 1992. I completed my graduation in 1992 April, and in June 92 I started working as a teacher both in Malad and in Ashok Nagar school. So from 1992 to 1998, Ashok Nagar school also became very popular, as popular as the Children's Academy Malad, and the admissions in Ashok Nagar was we were getting admissions as far as from Daisar, Borivali Daisar. So again, that school became full. We had more than 4,000 students in uh, Ashok Nagar school itself within a short span of 10 years. So by 2000, we were maxed out in both in Malad and in Ashoknagar, and we started looking for a school in Kandivali again, in Kandivali Borivali, and fortunately we found a school plot in Thakur complex in Ashanagar. Unfortunately, daddy was not there. Though he was there at the time of purchase, he also approved all the plans for the Thakur complex school, but got other plans for him, and he passed away in 2001. So we constructed the school after his demise in 2002. So from 2002 we started the June 2002, I think we started Children's Academy Thakur Complex, and parents, again the same similar structure was followed, where parents of Ashok Nagar were requested that this is a new school, Children's Academy brand is the same, teachers are the same, quality of school will be maintained, and parents had trust in us, and they shifted from Ashok Nagar. People from that area shifted to Thakur Complex branch, and that the story continued at Children's Academy Thakur Complex.
Now, running one institution versus running 3, 4, the scale is very different.
Correct.
What are those things that you really faced, which were actually this entire journey of transition really had involved?
Transitioning from Children's Academy Malad to Children's Academy Kandili or Ashoknagar, or from to Thakur Complex, was never a challenge, because the parent community was the same. Within 6 kilometers, we had 3 schools. Transition to Thane is now a challenge for us. I will not say in terms of quality of education, because we found that parents, wherever they are, they require the same basic things, and if you are able to give them a good quality, you are able to give them good teachers who are continuously there. They want continuity. That is what they ask for. They ask for things like safety, and they ask for a open communication, open transparent communication from the management. If the schools are able to fill this, I don't think it is a challenge to open new schools. For us, the transition at Thane was smooth. We had our teacher who was in the primary, who had gone to the secondary, and a very good teacher. We transferred her to the Children's Academy Thane branch, and she continued. So for us, the challenge was not of education. With technology, it has become easier to transition. We are able to maintain the same quality across the 3 schools and the 4th school. The challenge for us as a group, because Thane is 15 kilometers away from this school, the challenge is for us to continue with the same culture and ethos of the existing school. The philosophy of Children's Academy Group of School has to continue in the new school. That is the challenge, and we are able to do that also.
How do you do that?
That is because that some of the teachers who have already worked here in our Malad school, Kandiri school, have transferred to that school. So they are teachers already. We are building a new team, but with the leader, the principal being the same, and with some set of teachers traveling there, and also we have continuous meetings with the teachers of Thane. Thane teachers are coming to our school. When we started the school, we appointed the first set of teachers before the school even started. So we paid them full salaries. We gave them transportation every day from Thane to Mumbai. We made them just come and shadow our teachers, not to teach. Just come to our school, shadow our teachers, understand the basic philosophy of what Children's Academy is. I can always give them lesson plans, which we are already doing through the portal. So giving them standard operating procedures is easy, but for them to imbibe the culture of the school, but maybe in future, if we open up far off places, I do not know whether we'll be able to do that. But as of today, we are able to transition very smoothly.
Wonderful. The institution had, if I look at the past, say 50 years of journey, 2 parts. The first 25 years till 2001, when Mr. V. Bhat was around, and after that, when the two of you have taken the mantle on. What were those leadership qualities of your father, which actually helped you to build the institution to what it is today? And what is it that you want to actually, where is it that you want to actually replicate his own style or improve upon it?
Okay. So, uh, as a leader, I do not know how do we categorize him as a leader. Uh, he was an educator, but if I have to put him in some category of leadership, I would say that he followed the mentorship style of leadership.
Okay.
That is the closest I could get, because he had an innate ability to select teachers. And we are talking about 1970s, when B.Ed was not a compulsion. It was a compulsion, but there were so many teachers who are not having the B.Ed qualification. But he managed to interact with the people for maybe 15 minutes and was able to spot that this is a good teacher, the potential of being a good teacher. And there were so many teachers he picked up just by meeting them over a cup of tea. And he said, okay, you will become a good teacher. Do you want to become a teacher? And he used to put them into the class and handhold them, continuously mentorship. Like Rohan was telling, the Children's Academy was only on the ground floor. The 4 floors were residential buildings. So windows across each classroom. Father used to stand on the window, looking inside, and for hours together. So every child who passed through that years remembers Bhat sir taking continuous rounds. Either he was standing on the door, and it became so common for the teacher that it was never a hindrance that Bhat sir is standing and looking at me watching. So the lesson observations were always done from the window or from the door, looking inside, and then stopping the teacher whenever they went wrong, correcting them, mentoring them. So the entire idea was continuous mentorship of teachers during school hours as well as after school hours. So again, the second thing what he did was it was, since we also stayed inside the school in one of the rooms which is not a classroom. So the house was always open to teachers. So he always had a family, he wanted the school to be more like a family. That entire set of teachers at that time, it was teachers used to come in and out of my house like a staff room. So that continued for a long time. The family atmosphere continued for a long time. So for him, the joys of the teacher was his joy, the sorrow of the teachers was his sorrow. And I remember he was so open with the teachers that he funded a lot of teachers' first homes in Mumbai through his personal capacity. So I and Rohan still continue. We have ensured that our school, now we have got 700 teachers, but somehow we still manage to resonate that, every birthday, every family wedding of the teacher, we manage to go there and continue that atmosphere of teacher family. So there is no appointment required to meet me or Rohan. They just simply say, sir, can we have a word with you? So we managed to keep that, even with 4 schools, we managed to keep no teachers personally.
Wow, awesome! I mean, that's a fantastic achievement, given the scale and all of that, right? I think obviously maintaining this itself is a humongous task, and this whole family kind of thing that your father started has definitely helped you in taking the institution. Awesome! I mean, great to know this journey. And Dr. Mishra, you have a very different experience, right? You were a teacher, and then now you are a consultant. I would say a fairly unique kind of a background. How has your teaching background actually helped you to, I would say, foster and help so many different schools and of different shapes and sizes and different cultures behind?
So I've seen about 27,000 schools coming up in last 18, 19 years, from 7, 8 schools in IB to about 250 odd schools in IB. So while I was setting up school for people, I realized that a lot of schools are coming, but they do not have a support system. Those days, people either went to a franchise or they struggled somehow. People talk about sustainability these days a lot. I, being a finance guy, thought you need financially sustainable schools. And I used my whatever little understanding of school finances I had. I helped people in, writing a right feasibility report. Then I realized that, school designs need to be different because, our schools are not very child friendly designed very, very child friendly. So started whatever little knowledge I had, started helping people design good schools, then started recruiting good teachers for them. I realized that, you need decent teachers training, because a new school, when it comes up, there are people from various schools who come up. So developing culture, like, what both the brothers were saying, the culture is very important. So a school with so many people, principal and everybody coming from various places, defining the right culture, right teacher training, right curriculum, pedagogies, evolving a school rather, so we tell people that we don't set up a school for you. We discover a school for you, what you want to do and what the area needs. So I would not say that I started Life Educare. Life Educare happened to me.
Understood. So I think your teacher to a consultant kind of a thing, the morphing actually happened because of the various experiences of working with so many different schools and the opportunity that kind of came in front of you.
Yes, and I saw that, K-12 education spaces needed the right advice. And one thing that kind of, we did not do is to relive our past with the new schools. We kind of, cleaned the writing board, design board, and created, rather carved the school for, people.
Very interesting journey. I think it's probably one of the unique things that I've heard, that, teacher morphing into a consultant. I think great thing. The K-12 education sector in India, you might not believe it, is a 4 lakh crore rupee industry. So we are not talking about very small numbers here. And this 4 lakh crore in the next 5 years is going to become 7.5 lakh crores. So that's the pace of growth of this industry itself. So anybody who wants to make a mark in this industry must focus upon certain basic fundamentals: the quality of education, quality of management of the schools, the holistic experience that you give to the children, and to be in sync with the changing times, right? Whether it is technology, whether it is the curriculums which are changing, and so on and so forth. And of course, there is competition, correct? Now, let's pick up one of those aspects and see, to start with Mr. Rohan Bhat, the new education policy, which experts tell me is a game changer, or could be a game changer, right? Now, let's understand from Mr. Rohan Bhat, what does he think about this new education policy, and do you see this actually aiding growth of schools in India?
New education policy is a very broad thing. Like, the education policy talks about many things, and it's a game changer, because as of today, or till now, basically, we were content driven. The focus was on the content. NEP asked us to change this and go from content to the other aspects of learning, to skill development as such, to focus on the skill. We have a problem that we were too much content driven, so finding it children, the students who are there is the common complaint of the industry, that they are not industry ready. Okay, the main reason for them that is because the children were not exposed to anything. So your content or curriculum, there is a limit to which it can help you in your career as such. You can't work with the content which is 25 years old and carry on with your careers. For you to grow in your career, or you to become a part of a job or a industry or a vocation or a profession, you require many more things. Absolutely. So this is where the change is being looked at. So the NEP basically talks about changing this. Of course, it does. Other than that, there are a lot of administrative changes also.
Okay.
So it starts with the organization of education as the school industry as such, from what we have today as nursery, junior, senior being, then the primary section, and then the secondary section. It moves the first 5 years of the basic foundational years, and then it goes to the preparatory years. So it's not only the change of terminology, it's the change in which education has to happen. So the first pre-primary stage was the most neglected stage, because what is there to teach? ABCD a few songs, and you're done. That's the mindset which most of the schools had. So they focuses that this is the most formative years of the child, and this is where you have to concentrate. So that is where the change is coming, and they have included grade 1 and 2 with that. So, and they want a totally different methodology of teaching these students. So the focus is on the development of the particular skills of the child. You looking at not making them learn the letters of the alphabet.
Understood.
So the NEP wants us to focus on the pre-primary education and the preparatory years, which we call, so that the students are not only talking about learning about the content, which is then of course a part of it, but they are also developing certain skills that are required for them. So all those things are starting from the pre-primary stage itself. The NEP also speaks about making learning joyful. So children are actually interested to come to school. It talks about interdisciplinary teaching instead of having a hard distinguish between the math and the English and this. So there are so many things that are happening in that. Apart from that, it also talks about the assessments, the difference in the quality of the assessments, the holistic assessment that has to take place, the continuous assessment that has to take place, the competency based assessment that has to take place. It talks about infrastructural development that are required. It talks about teachers training. It talks about there are so many other the accreditation and the documentation, and which may be the most difficult of the entire thing, which frustrates people. The most difficult thing I would say. So there are many aspects of NEP, and as far as the schools are concerned, they are of course changing. Okay, the changes are bound to happen because the government is of course pushing it, but individually they have to be looking at the whole thing to understand what and how they can reach this stage. It's not that 1 year, 2 year, 5 year program. It's going to be a long process.
Sure.
We have to change our entire mindset to do that. Their schools have to get ready and to gear up for it. That is how it is going to work.
So it's obviously going to be a challenge for students to, for the schools to actually learn, unlearn, relearn.
Yeah, it is going to be. It is a challenge. Now, if you ask me how to go about it, then of course it's not. It's not going to be easy path. So what I would advise is that the path, you at least read the document. You have to approach it with a open mind. You hear it from here and there, and most of the times it is like there is a lot of negativity in the discussions, that what difference will it make, and why is this required like this, and why it should be like this. So this, instead of being negative, I would advise people first go through the document without any bias, without trying to understand too much, without trying to think how am I going to implement this. Make a plan just to understand the whole plan, and then maybe you start working on what are the easiest things for you to do. Make a list of things. You understand that it's very easy to make learning very joyful, and learning, make it student centric, moving it from teacher centric to being a child centric school. You look at that and how it can be done in the pre-primary stages, which is the easiest. You can look at training the teachers, that what kind of pedagogies are around, what are the pedagogies that I was using and now what I should be using, how I can make the changes. You can teach teachers to use or leverage the AI now, which is there, which makes it very simple to develop a good lesson plan, which is in sync with we can ask the AI to make it interdisciplinary. If you don't understand it, you can at least read the document, you can understand. So teachers training and the small changes can keep on happening. A lot of focus for us on the foundational literacy and numeracy. So how do we make that foundation sure? for the literature program, for the language program, and for the numeracy or the math program. So these are small changes that can happen. You can look at the small uh, administrative changes that you can do as your teachers are working. You can ask them to document whatever they are doing, and so you will learn that it's a process that you already started without actually doing much.
So all in all, a lot
Of things can be done if you
Yeah.
don't get overwhelmed by the whole thing.
I think an open mind is probably the most important factor. I think one of the things that we try to cover in Progress Mantras is that how do we prepare our schools and our MSMEs in general for the fast changing environment, right? Now, obviously, in any industry, as in the education industry, expectations of our customers, in this case, the parents and the children, are changing extremely rapidly. So, let me ask Mr. Rohit Bhat, how does he see this entire scenario emerging? And what are the kind of changes that are happening in the mindsets of the parents, their expectations, the children? Today children are becoming more vocal, the teaching methodology, technology, and all of that is changing. I don't think it will be out of place to mention COVID as one of the change agents which has really happened as well. So how do you see that happen?
Okay, I have completed almost 33 years in the school, and especially interacting with the parents of the past and the parents of today. A major change what I have seen is the definitions of families. Previously, our families had many children. There were joint families, and because of the change which we have seen in the families, the number of children in the families have come down to one, not even two, because we give a lot of admissions to our own parents. And when I statistically track that, I find that the number of children in the family has come down from 2 to 1. So maybe education is becoming more expensive, and that is one reason why parents want only one child, and they want to give the best to that one child. And that is what I've seen is parents are now more vocal. They are more they want value for money. Children's Academy has always catered to in the initial years of the first generation parents. So the first generation parents only wanted the children to get good results, good school, giving good results in the grade 10th, and then maybe hoping that they will go to a better job than what the parents had. But now what we have seen is the parents are have shifted from trust to transaction.
Okay.
Previously, whatever the school used to say used to be taken with all good intentions. Now the parents demand a lot. They keep the schools on their toes. So that is one thing I've seen with the parents. The opportunity for the schools is that because the parents are so interested, especially I've seen myself seen change, because previously fathers were never a part of education. They used to come and say, "Mera beta school mein padhta hai." But very frankly, they never used to, even if they knew the standard, they never used to know the division. So now what I've seen is the parents, fathers are also interested. I see a lot of fathers coming for PTA meetings. They attend the open houses. They are there for the cheering the children for the annual days as well as for the sports day. So that is an opportunity for the school, because schools always crib about parents not being a stakeholder in education. But many parents do that, and I find that that's an opportunity where the school can partner and partner with the parents in education at home. So that is one of the opportunity what I've seen.
Okay. And in terms of technology, in terms of how the entire spectrum has moved,
Yeah.
and since Mr. Rohan talked
Yeah, he
about
spoke about
the NEP,
correct.
how do you kind of use all of that?
Again, technology is always a boon for us. Whether it was when we shifted, when we had internet coming to schools in 90s or 2000s, and then when we shifted our classrooms with just a plain board to a projector and a TV, it has always been a boon. Education became more interesting for the children when they saw volcanoes exploding, when they saw the revolutions of the moon, when and also then the introduction of internet and Google, etc. And now with robotic coming in, with coding coming in, and like Rohan said, with AI coming in, the opportunity for schools has, especially in terms of usability for the teachers using the AI and technology in preparing, the most important aspect, as Children's Academy believe, is lesson planning. So teachers using lesson plans, using AI in lesson plans, it has been wonderful. It has become, teachers' job has become easier because they just have to go to the AI, ChatGPT or whatever, Perplexity or other tools which are available to create to create differentiated learning plans for students and so on. The challenge for budget schools is keeping on changing infrastructure, support which is required. Now with ICC schools asking schools to change the infrastructure to keep it, more, make it more modern. So we are budgeting for that. Approximately 15 lakh rupees to 16 lakh rupees only per branch is required for improving the infrastructure in the of the computers. So that is a challenge for us. Uh, Having licensed software, paying huge licensing fees is a challenge. But at the same time, internet, AI, most of the things are still free. So we have shifted to open source computers, or open source softwares, which is helping the schools like us.
Awesome. And so obviously, these are things which have changed in a very rapid manner.
Correct.
And if you're right, talking about a 75% jump in the school revenues from 4 lakh crores to 7.5 lakh crores, these are the ones which are going to make the journey easier, right? And to turn to the consultant amongst us, if I wish, Dr. Mishra, all these are really frightening at one level, right? While they are enabling, any change management has a certain amount of, fear factor which is involved. How do you see, as we earlier saw, the number of schools is also jumping. You only talked about from, 7,000 schools, 37,000 schools. This is really rapid pace of change. Now, how do we stop the, I would say, unqualified schools from mushrooming, but the ones which are coming up to be of a certain quality? What are the kind of mantras that you would leave for our aspiring educationists?
I'm glad you used the term mushrooming because that's what is happening. So while, let me give you a context and background of, education and schools coming up in India. Possibly we are the only SAARC country where the school education or education is not for profit. I have myself set up schools in Nepal and, in any Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, you go, schools can be set up for profit. Rather, there is no private schools in India because it is still managed by trust, and so these are all public schools. And school is a public enterprise, it's a public interest venture. So I think right people like, Bhat should come into in education. And possibly what happens is there is no financial hand-holding that happens to a school promoter, somebody who wants to start school. Do we know, uh, under full capacity, what percent of the revenue has to go into salaries? What percentage has to be retained for future expansions? Like, with NEP coming in, a lot of schools need, funds. But do they have provided for in last 10 years in terms of retained earnings? So my advice to school promoters would be to have financial prudence and draw a right, whether it is for profit or not. These days everybody talks about sustainability. I talk about financial sustainability of a school. So you need to have the right business plan with decent apportionment of expenses everywhere, where, if you are not paying a certain percentage of the revenue as your salary, you are under delivering. So I would say just to understand the right business model, and also people after the NEP, I'm sure a lot of schools are going to remodel themselves, both financially as well as academically. So what we need to understand is, do you have the right values? Do you have the right pedagogies? Do you, and for schools that want to transform into an NEP enabled, NEP ready schools, the transition is going to be really important, both financially as well as academically. So my advice would be to kind of, go back and draw a decent business plan, and also factor each and every cost that is needed, as rightly mentioned by them, the right cost apportionment, with a focus to upgrade the infrastructure as well as something called teachers training. Because the real warriors of change in an NEP enabled or a 21st century school with skills are going to be teachers. So I think proper apportionment of cost for teachers training and upgradation is something that I would want to advocate.
So while education may be an industry of passion, ultimately it's an industry. So therefore, careful planning, making sure that you have the right infrastructure and right skill sets amongst the teachers is so critical for success. I think that's the mantra that I would summarize, right?
Yes.
Awesome. So what we are really hearing about is a pace of relentless change. Now, in all of this, what is the future school likely to be? Let me ask that question to Mr. Rohit Bhatt.
Like Rohan sir said, NEP is a game changer for schools. And education industry, I think, in India, is in its best moments.
Okay.
I keep on telling the parents of those who have taken admission now, this year or the last year, that their children are the most lucky because of NEP. And if NEP is even able to complete, to achieve, or the schools are able to achieve what NEP envisions, even up to 50 to 60%, we are in a good, our children are in a good space. And for the schools, I feel, like sir said, we have to start with at least the low hanging fruits. Uh, Start going towards whatever NEP says, and uh, bring in whatever changes, especially the children are going to be the most happy in the future with whatever the integration of subjects, with schools really trying to focus on joyful centers. So I feel we as schools, we cannot rest on our laurels. Whatever has happened in the past is in the past. Every school will require to change, and the schools which do not change slowly will see a decrease in the admissions. Parents have got a choice now with IB schools coming up, with IGCC schools coming up, with more and more CBSE and ICC schools coming up. If the schools don't change, you will find definitely the schools slowly losing on the admissions. So I feel the schools require to challenge themselves to look at introducing new things, whether it is classroom changes, infrastructure changes, or bringing changes in the pedagogies, making the schools classrooms more fun, and bringing in new things to classrooms.
So basically, you're saying that a child should feel welcomed into the school and
Yes.
should not be seeing it as a drudgery.
Yes.
To put it in a very mild manner, right? I think it's such an awesome statement. And you said one thing which really gets stuck in my mind, that I can't rest on my past laurels and hope that that will take me forward. So therefore, looking at oneself in the mirror, making sure that you are changing along with the times is so important, not just in the school industry, any other industry, whether you are a small guy or a big guy. We have seen giants actually shutting down in a matter of few years simply because they did not see the change coming and they did not adapt themselves. We can quote so many examples. Let that not happen to any of us. And let's make sure that one of the mantras that we carry forward in our progress is to make sure that we keep looking at the environment and adapt. Otherwise, as Charles Darwin says, any species that doesn't adapt will eventually die. Let us not make that mistake. India is the most populous nation in the world, and we have the maximum number of young people. Quite naturally, our education institution network is also one of the largest in the world. Now, that may be true, but the point is, today we are not standing at a single place, right? We are, as we've seen, the NEP and so many other things that have really happened, technology changing, etc., has put this entire bunch of education institutions on a path of continuous and very fast change. Now, how are we really going to deal with that and how to extract the maximum amount of potential from this is something that we really need to understand. One of the things that we have is that we have a myriad of curriculums. Each state has got its own state board, and then there is a CBSE, there's an ICSE, there are IB, IGSE kind of curriculums coming across. And how does a school look at this entire complicated scenario in the right way? Now, I have seen at least many of our funded schools actually moving from one curriculum to another in the hope that, okay, the new move will bring in a better quality of education for their students. Is it really so easy? Why should we move? Should we at all move? And if we have to move, what is the right way to move? What are the challenges that the school has to go through in order to make sure that the change in curriculum becomes a meaningful one and a profitable one for the students as well as for the institution? These are some of the questions that come to my mind. And I want to ask Rohan sir that, your own group of institutions, you started with SSC. Sometime, during the course of the journey, you moved from SSC to ICSC. Now you opened up another option for the students in terms of the IB part. Is it really necessary? And if you have gone through that, how did you go through it to make sure that there is you are basically taking care of all the pitfalls which associated with this kind of a change?
Okay, so this change has not been very voluntary, I could say. It's basically the first change, especially from the state board to the ICSE board, was more of public aspiration rather than the school's aspiration or management's aspiration. We as a school always tell our parents, don't look at schools by way of looking at the board. Look at the school as a good school, bad school. There is nothing called a good board or a bad board. There is either a good school or there is a bad school. So you have to stop looking at things like that. How you select a school is what we talk to them about, and not usually our orientations are about what do you want exactly from the school and what is your financial capabilities. What would you like to do? It has to be based on that and not on the board of the school. You may be having a fantastic board with a fantastic curriculum and have the very poor teachers. It doesn't make any difference then. So basically, that is what we have been propagating, and that's why we were happy as we were. Because for us, you have to understand that boards give you the curriculum, the content which you have to teach. It gives you the way the assessments are going to happen for that particular board. It doesn't tell you how to teach. That's completely left to the school, whichever board you follow. You can follow the IB board and then you can teach the way you teach your state board school, and it would be a disaster, of course. So that's not how it goes. So taking a call, it was more of public aspiration that people wanted the change to happen. We tried to educate people, telling them, see, don't worry about the board. We are in sync with the latest methodologies, but that pressure was there. And sometimes it's always best to bend to public pressure, I would say. Unless of course it's a matter of principles. So here there was nothing like that. It's okay. We knew that there are certain things as a state board we can't do because we have a class of 60, 65, even 70 sometimes. So there are certain pedagogies, certain methodologies that cannot be done in a state board's classroom, though you may know about it and you would want to do about it, like doing a practical or doing a discussion. It's very difficult in a class of 70. It is easier in a class of 40 and it is ideal in a class of 20. But that's then the economics comes into play. What is your clientele? What is your geography around you? What is the paying capability of the people? So it's not a one-dimensional decision that comes into play. So we changed because of that. As far as the advising people on that is, I would only say is that you have to be clear about what is your vision. There is nothing right or wrong in that. If your vision is to educate the most poorest of the people around, it's okay for you to run a state board school, because you can't keep on financing maybe to that extent where you have a ICSE board and then you cannot pay the teachers. So you can't get into such a situation. So as long as your vision is clear, it is okay whether it is you want to open a IB board, you want to give high quality education, and if you feel that your vision is providing that through IB, it's okay. Now, opening the IB section in our school for the IBCB program was a totally different reason. That was management driven and not aspiration of the parents or anybody. We were looking at working further with the teaching methodologies and pedagogies, like what else enhancements can happen. Even before the NEP came, we were looking at change of methodology in the pre-primary section to make it more friendly, more enjoyable. So we were already in 2017, I think, or 18, somewhere around that time, we were already inviting pre-primary heads or the primary heads to discuss with our staff members to understand what is the way you teach and what is the way I teach. What can I do better? So we had already started working. So we had an idea of IB education even before the pandemic started. So we were already working on it. The pandemic came, it uprooted and made disrupted the entire system. And during that time, we overhauled the pre-primary education completely, and also to extend the primary education, because we got that time to actually exclusively work on it. Then came the NEP in 2020. So when we read the NEP document and we already had some idea about the IB, we realized that NEP is telling nothing but to do what IB has already done. So basically, the ideal kind of education system that should be running. That's how education should happen in the classroom. So by coincidence, can say we had our ex-student coming to school. He is also doing running the CP program for the IB, and he pushed us into starting the IBCP, and we thought that we could learn a lot, because then we are practically doing it on a day-to-day basis, and that learning is now today helping us, because we are that percolation which we wanted to happen has happened. So that's how. And as far as people giving a advice to people about how to move about to this, I would say don't abruptly change things. You have to be ready for things. If you are running a state board school and you want to run a ICSE school or a CBSE school, first and foremost, your teachers have to be ready. And you have to be clear in your mind that it is not board is not changing your content. The content will basically remain the same, give or take 15, 20, 10, 15% here or there. What is going to change is the examination system, and the examination system changes the way you teach. So are your teachers ready for it? So you first start working on the teachers first and then think of changing the board is would my advice to people. So of course it has got financial implications. You are running with 60, 70 students with a certain amount of X number of fees. You feel that you are going to get more fees, but you remember that you're going to get less students. You can't exceed 40. So in the CBSE or the ICSE. So finance is going to be affected. So it is not going to be a big change in it. If the paying capacity of around you is only X, it is going to remain X. Just because you want it to be X square, it doesn't work like that. So that is how it should be. It has to be, the transition has to be simple. It should not deprive children who cannot afford that new fees of education. That's how we went about. We changed only the nursery admission. From junior KG onwards, we gave people the option. You can either come here or you can come here. We gave our word that till your child passes out of the state board 10th standard, you will get the senior most teachers in the school. We will not compromise on that, whatever happens. And we stuck to our words. We never had a single parent coming and complaining that you have put our children in trouble, you have given us bad teachers. The same senior most teachers were the last ones to transit to the ICSE board. The junior most teachers were the trained first. They were the ones who took up the ICSE board, and that is how the transition happened very smoothly without affecting anybody. It took a lot of time, and ICSE board, we openly told them, say, I can't close this overnight. They said, you can't run two boards. No, I am not asking you to run two boards. I am asking you for time. So they said, okay, give us an undertaking that you will close it down. I say, okay, I am fine. This is the phase, and on so and so year, everything will close down.
Phase withdrawal.
Phase withdrawal will happen.
Correct.
No one affected, staff well trained, well prepared. So the senior most staff, of course, find the most difficult to change because they are used to certain way of teaching. We kept on training them. They started taking, in fact, the junior classes, they were happy with that. They were okay with that. But I don't want to teach 10 standards suddenly. I'll go through the pace and I'll go back there because they have the knowledge. It's only the methodology that changes.
I think
So it's
such a
very smooth process.
yeah. Such an important way that you mentioned, you're making the process entirely smooth. It actually creates a certain factor of trust in the school
Exactly.
and helps to manage the perception of what the school is all about. And which is where I kind of want to come to you, Dr. Mishra, that, in this entire change that we are witnessing, managing perceptions and making sure that while you have a vision in your mind to be a budget school, but there are so many pressures, as Rohan sir mentioned. How do you manage all of that and still maintain your standard or your focus to be a budget school and not become an elitist school? How is it so? Obviously it's going to be difficult. But what would be your advice for such kind of institutions? We are looking at this kind of a transition.
I think one thing that I would say is growth doesn't happen to you. Growth first happens in your mind. Growth is a mindset. So I think you need that growth mindset, that you need to be you need to grow and become better school. Now we are a country where you have schools charging 20,000 rupees per annum to day schools charging 20 lakh rupees per annum. So there's a wide spectrum. No school is cheaper or expensive. It's just that you give the right value for money. So what I would say is, while you are doing this transition, never leave that value for money, what you're going to give to the parent. So, first thing is that have that growth mindset that, yes, I need to grow into a better school. And also, whether you're a state board school, transitioning to ICSE or CBSE or even IB, or from a state board to a national board, whatever, NEP would make you do irrespective. Even if you're a state board, you need to make that change. So, first need to have that growth mindset. Then I would say you need to invest in the right technology, because you can't grow without right technology. So choose right technology, invest in right technology. And another thing that I would say NEP would bring in, and I think at this platform, I would like to raise this issue that implementing NEP is going to bring in a lot of curriculum transaction cost. Gone are the days when, a blackboard, paint, and a chalk and a duster used to be the only curriculum transaction cost that we had. You will need to have, labs, you need to have props, NEP talks about experiential learning. How do you give experience to a child without investing in right props and right, apparatuses? You need to actually, think about curriculum transaction cost. And being a teacher, we've never, as a company, we've never done anything for the children directly. I somewhere feel if you are doing right things to the teachers, they'll take care of the students. So invest in right kind of teachers, retain them, train them. Teachers may come and leave, but you should not be kind of, not investing in right teacher and right teacher training. I think, and I feel if growth is your mindset and you want to do this, realigning your school to the NEP is not going to be very tough. And, another thing, a budget school doesn't operate or doesn't make sense at low numbers. So you need to have numbers, right numbers. A budget school is not going to make break even at less than 500 children. So you need to have numbers. Now, when you scale up, when you have higher numbers, how do you ensure seamless transaction both vertically and horizontally within a class and when you grow upward? So I think what Ms. Bhatts have done is that you need to have the right, change in section of a child should not change the way you transact a curriculum. So I think, investing in right kind of SOPs, lesson plans, I would say, these are certain things which I feel you need to do. And also another thing that NEP is going to do is you need to kind of invest in right infrastructure. So plan all these, and again I would come back to a rightly written business plan where you need to factor all these things, including, I would reaffirm, the curriculum transaction cost is going to be a major differentiator in the way you implement NEP in your school.
So obviously these are all important factors because the industry itself is becoming intensely competitive. So how do you kind of therefore make sure that you do the right thing so that you actually have a pull factor, which we experienced in the case of Mr. Rohan spoke about the pull factor that his father managed to get.
Absolutely.
So today the same thing in a different manner we are talking about, right? I think it's so
Just
so
to
critical.
add, not barge in, but then I think as far as our school goes, we sacrificed growth for this transactional cost. We moved from this blackboard to digital boards over a period of time, and this has been continuous. It is not a one-stop process that today I have in blackboard and tomorrow I am on this. It has been a continuous cost that has been there in upgrading the school. So I think that's a very, very important factor you have spoken about, because there is something you couldn't save money because you are continuously upgrading yourself. One technology comes, you are done with that, then something new came, then we are done with that. So what is left is only the scrap. Yeah, scrap value, what you call. Nothing is left there. So there is money gone. Don't know, you can't salvage anything out of it. So it's a very important cost which you should keep in mind, that this is not coming back.
True. So I mean, obviously, we are talking about a growth and so on and so forth in an intensely competitive environment. I think one of the things that Rohit sir said in the beginning itself, the maintenance of the culture is so important for the continuity of the school in the same standard, in spite of the growth in scale, right? Now, that is a story that you have experienced personally, and with that and so many other aspects which are attached to growth pangs, as it were. What would be the kind of advice that you would have for an aspiring educationist who wants to go from, let's say, 500 students to 5,000 students and from one school to 5 schools?
Like I said, I think schools worry about and try to prepare themselves for the future. They keep on, there are so many challenges, there's so many new things which are coming up. But I think I read where the CEO of Amazon said that let's not bother too much about preparation for things which will come. Try to prepare yourselves, try to keep in mind the things which do not change. So when I am talking about parents, what I have seen across all the 4 schools, uh, in the three schools of Mumbai, or when you go to the 4th school of Thane, the parents expect basic things, and if the schools are able to fulfill that, then going from 0 to 500 or 500 to 5,000 is very easy. So keeping in mind certain things which the parent wants, like sir said, value for money. That is one thing which every parent, whether he is in Mumbai, whether he is in Thana, whether he is in Sangli or Satara, he will keep that in mind. So the school should see to that whatever the parents are paying, they are getting value for money. Second thing is, every parent, whether today or yesterday or tomorrow, is going to look for safety of the child. So giving a child, giving all aspects of safety, especially now with POXO coming in, keeping that in mind, if the parent is satisfied that there is enough safety for the child, that is another reason for a parent to take admission to your school. This is not perception. There, he has to actually see the infrastructure in place. Third thing which I feel is every parent comes to school. The focus has shifted from your ICC results of 10th standard. No parent in Thane, I have met around 300 parents in Thane. Not even a single parent has asked me about my previous 10% results for so many years. They are not bothered about 90%, the child getting 90%. They are asking for quality education. They want that the child should be happy in school, joyful learning. They are every parent now today, at least what I have encountered, wants to know what skills are being developed in his child. He wants his child to be good at speech. He wants his child to be good at drama. He wants his child to at least get an opportunity to prepare himself for drama, to prepare him for sports. It's like a client going to a builder and asking, "Kya amenities milega building mein?" So that is what the parent says, "Sir, what are the things, what are the activities which you are going to do in school?" Not even one parent, 50 parents have asked me about academics. They are more bothered about things like co-curricular activities. They want to know how sports will be developed. So if the school has answers for that, even without a big ground, the parent wants his child to get that half an hour, 1 hour of sports every day. Parents want good curriculum transaction. They want the transaction which is promised to them to be completed on time. They want teachers continuity. These are some basic things which I have understood when the parent says that I want admission in your school because Children's Academy, uh, people have told us that at Children's Academy teachers don't quit and go in the middle of the year. So they want teachers continuity throughout the year at least. They do not like teachers coming and going out every 2 months, every 3 months, because the child is not able to relate to the new teacher who comes in. They want clear communication from the parents. That is one basic thing which the parents demand from a school. And I think it is within everybody's rights to get clear, transparent communication. They want clear, transparent policies of the school. So if you are able to satisfy these points, which are actually very basic, they want parents want a place and a time to meet the teachers. They want to be respected. I feel that many parents have the grouse that my voice is not heard in the school. I am told, ये ऐसा school में होगा, आपको करना है. So the parent has the feeling that I am not respected in the school. So even if the parent is heard, even I tell the parents, I will listen to you, whether your decision, whether your suggestions will be implemented. I am seeing a bigger from the overview. It may not be possible to implement every possible suggestion, but a parent is happy that he has got to meet the CEO or the chairman or the principal or a teacher or a coordinator and has put his point across. So if you give all this to the parent is happy, and going from 0 to 100 or 100 to 5,000 is not a difficult task. And at Thane we have seen 200% increase in our admissions on the first year. And that is again, I believe, with all the points I have kept in, I have just told you, if keeping that in mind, parents are happy that this is the school which I want to admit.
So, as Rohit sir said, just to summarize whatever he said, there are 4 pillars that every growth story has to depend upon. One is to make sure that the culture is maintained. It's so critical. Then the second one is to make sure that the transaction delivery happens in the right manner. The third one is to think about the holistic development of the child, not just academics, but also the other things like sports and so many other things. And the fourth one is to maintain open communication with the parents, making sure that the parents feel respected and wanted. These are the 4 pillars. If we are clear about this and we implement this properly, growth, scale, and number of institutions that we run is not going to be a challenge at all. Now, we are talking about growth, and most of India's schools are what can be called as budget schools. Now, Dr. Mishra, you've actually given birth to so many schools, 65 plus. How should the business model of a so-called budget school actually change over a period of time? What are those things that they need to really look at and cater to the growth?
To answer your question, uh, I would say budget schools do not mean cheap schools. Budget schools means right value for money in that particular budget range. I think school promotes, we are talking about financial literacy in the school as a curriculum. I think we should have something for the school promoters also, a financial literacy program where they know right apportionment of cost and revenue. So we've consulted schools where, 1 month budget for one school is like a yearly budget for the second school. So we consult in various spectrum. So I think, you need to understand that it is going to take 3 to 4 years for you to become operationally breaking even if you're starting a new school. And possibly the project break even would take about 7 to 8 years. So you need to be prepared to have that kind of cash flow there with you, the right cash flow, because the school doesn't struggle, because of anything. But the first struggle that a school starts having is when the teachers are not paid on time. So financial prudence is something which I would say that the promoters should have. And they should also kind of think of having the retained earnings in such a way that, because now you see technology is changing very fast, and technology, usually in schools would change in maybe 5 to 10 years. So, you need to kind of have right business model, apportionment of, various cost and revenue heads, also right kind of salaries to be paid. And to sum it up, I think you need to remain contemporary always in terms of technology as well as in terms of infrastructure.
So to summarize, you're basically talking about making sure that your income streams and expense streams are properly mapped. Give priority to payment of salaries to the teachers because that's your real, asset. If I would say, and making sure that you keep most of the earnings or the retained earnings of the school inside the school's balance sheet and use that to make sure that you are contemporary. So these are the way to kind of change. So do not fritter away your gains or profits or retained earnings into things which are not meaningful, but reinvest it back into the school and wait for results to happen, because you need to have a lot of patience to wait for 7-8 years before you
Yes.
actually
So,
get.
one last advice to a budget school promoter would be, do not invest in fancy stuff. Invest in stuff which is relevant and is going to make a difference in a teacher's life and a child's life.
So the mantra of the last 2-3 conversations that we had, value for money. What fees you charge is less relevant, but for every rupee that you charge, what are you giving back to the child and to the parent is most important. Let's focus upon that and continue on our growth path. As a school grows, you obviously need more hands to manage that school. Typically, a family, when it starts to run a school, more and more family members are involved into managing the school itself. And this itself creates a certain dynamism which needs to be addressed. Because yes, they are part of the same family members, they have different faculties. How do you manage that particular thing so that while the family involvement grows, you are also able to bring in the right amount of professionalism inside to make sure that it doesn't become a one-man show, and you are able to extract the passion that the family members have for the school in the right manner to make sure that the school is managed well. Who else to talk about this than Rohan sir? Because he's exactly done this and his family has been doing this for 148 years. So I can't think of a better person to answer that question.
It's a family-oriented school, definitely. And when there is a family, of course, the division of work is not well defined. So we face this problem quite a lot because I and Rohit were basically managing. So we didn't have any division of work. Of course, we had, like, I used to sit at Malad and he used to sit at Ashok Nagar. Or we used to both go to Thakur complex. So that's how it was working. And it did create issues for the staff members because I had my thought process, he had his thought process. There was confusion because I used to go in the morning and say, this is how your lesson plan should be and this is how it should be. And maybe he would come in the afternoon and say, this is how your lesson plan should be. And nobody would tell him, your brother has told something else in the morning. So confusions were there and duplication of work was there. I used to do the same thing and then he used to do the same thing for his school there, his branch. So all these issues were there. we were lucky that we came in touch with Bhavin from Education World, and he brought in uh, a consultancy firm called Sylvant. Uh, Mr. Anand Sudarshan from Manipal and Mr. Gaurav Singh who were there. So he just told us, we were discussing these issues with him, and he told us that why don't you meet this guy? He is from the education industry and maybe he would help you out. So when they came in, we had discussions, and then they went to each and every school, each and every branch, met a lot of people. In fact, it's not lesser people. In fact, they brought in more people, not only from the family, but they created a bigger family. So out of all the senior members of the staff that we had, looking at their skills, and there the division of work happened properly. So a bit of professionalism is very essential, and if you cannot do it on your own, it is better that you have somebody like them to advise you on it. And they divided the entire school into the academic board and the non-academic board. Is the way we still function. And we as brothers, basically, we sit on the board, but we don't manage the boards. Both these boards are managed by staff members and not even by the family members. So what happens is, brings a lot of new blood, new thoughts into this. At the same time, allowing us to control the basic principles. The only time when we interfere is when it, what do you say, clashes with our basic vision of things. That this doesn't go with what we have as a family have a vision. So it can't work like this. So that is the thing. So by bringing them, we were able to divide that work. Like I was also looking into, say, trips or picnics or children going out. He would also do. My wife will also do something. His wife will do something. I will do something about teachers training. Then his wife will do something about teachers training. So there's total chaos and confusion if it happens. So they divided the work, that okay, everything from all the three schools go to this person for this particular kind of work, which freed me and Rohit from lot of unnecessary duplication of work, which works even today. So I basically look into administration, legal laws, legal implications. I look into all these issues which are there, and he looks into more into standard operating procedures, the day-to-day working of the school, the lesson plan, the technology. So now Ronit has come in, so most of technology has moved it to him. We have somebody who looks solely into teachers training. So for each section, understanding what is important and where. So basically, if the family, if there is proper division of work, it works very well. And even if you have more family members, of course, if it's a growing organization, well and good. If it is not a growing organization, you may have trouble. But because you will have too many people doing nothing, and when people do nothing, it creates problems. They create problem because they have nothing to do. So I would advise against having too many people if you are not growing. If you are growing, there is nothing like having more family members. Like Samiksha, his daughter now, though she is not into administration as such, but there's a family member sitting in that school. So for the parents, there is one comfort that there's somebody sitting. Where he goes, I go sometimes, but there's somebody sitting there who they feel I can approach this person as this. So having family members is not a bad thing as such.
So, but you need to have a proper
Yes, we have to have
balance of the
balance of it, and so that a bit of professional help would,
is important.
I think, would be most welcome.
Most important point. Since we are talking about growth in an intensely competitive environment, making sure that the experience that the child gets is among the best if we have to attract the right kind of students. Technology obviously plays a very important role in this whole thing. Facilities play a very important role in this. Now, COVID has taught us that it is possible to run a school without actually having infrastructure. But there are, of course, limitations to that. But usage of technology was something that really saved a lot of schools from going under during COVID. Like what Rohit sir mentioned a little while ago, that providing the right holistic kind of experience for the child and making sure that we are talking about the all-round development of the child is so important. Let's focus upon the schools that he runs, how they are actually catering to this whole objective. Do they really have very large playgrounds? How do they focus upon the co-curricular activities, extracurricular activities, as well as the core academics? At the end of the day, core academics is what really defines school, right? So how do you really balance the two? Facilities availability, facility utilization, and balancing between academics and the non-academics.
Okay. Very frankly, Children's Academy has never been blessed with the greatest infrastructure. Children's Academy Thane, I think now, is got bigger ground than any of our 2-3 branches. But that has never been a hindrance right from 1970 when my father started the school. We believe that if you are passionate about something, deeply passionate about something, lack of infrastructure will never hinder you. And I think our results in academics, our results in sports is a testimony to the fact that infrastructure is not the most important thing. It is the scientific method of selecting the students for sports. It is providing the right uh, training for the students, especially in sports. So, if I talk about sports, Children's Academy, I will say, without boasting, it is among the top schools in Mumbai for sports, especially athletics, volleyball, judo, and hockey in Malad. Now, if I talk about hockey in Malad, we have at least 15 to 20 students in the last 20 years who have played for the nation in various state level or national games. Suraj Karkera, the India's goalkeeper, is from Children's Academy Malad. And it will surprise many people that Children's Academy Malad doesn't even have a hockey goal post even today. So it is not the ground infrastructure which counts, but it is a coach. Our coach, Marzban Patel, is a Dronachari awardee. And not only in hockey, in sport, in athletics also, providing good coaches to the students is much more important than having an artificial turf or artificial the ground for it. So, what we do is scientific selection right from grade 1 or 2. Students get selected at different sports. We have the benefit of 5 divisions in Malad, 5 divisions in Ashoknagar or Thakur complex. So, the students are then segregated according to the selection what the coach has done in the primary, and they continue to play the game as much as possible for many, many years, the same game. And the timetable for those students in the sports division is also slightly different than the others. So we try to see that students get 1 hour of practice every day during school hours, and then as they go higher, when they come to maybe 3rd, 4th, 6th, 5th and 6th, we request the parents, we involve the parents, and they come to school either before the school, they get coaching, or after the school, or on Saturdays and Sundays. So what happens is a student who gets selected for sports continues to play the game for many, many years, and by the time the child comes to 7th standard, 8th standard, you see progress. And that is why at Children's Academy Malad, even without a ground, today Children's Academy till last year, this particular year, Children's Academy was given the CIC Mumbai top school of Mumbai for athletics. So, the same goes for academics. Again, we have never gone for completion of portion as a important part. We are never prepared our children for examinations, but we always tell the parents that we are preparing your children for life. It is not the examination which is counting. So don't come to us saying that your portion is just getting over 1 week before. The onus of revision, I put it on the parents. So the portion gets completed only 1 week before the exam, because the teachers are explaining in a slow manner, in a way the students understand, and we do not prepare, like we said, examination preparation is the last thing in mind. historically our students, even in 10th standard, our portion gets over only by January 15th and not in Diwali or in Christmas, and then continuously have revision. So our children have always been giving only one prelims, not three prelims, four prelims, because our preparation for grade 10th has not started that particular year, but we have been practicing the similar methods, similar assessment examination. The children have been giving similar type of questions right from maybe the secondary. So I tell the parents, don't worry about examination because your children are already prepared from the last 5 years and not 1 year. We never have a merit batch for such. We have students who are weak in their academics, and we have a separate batch for weak students. So again, scientifically teaching them continuously, prioritizing conceptual understanding over rote memorization, and that is why we are very good at academics. And what we have seen is standardized operation procedures, lesson plans being given to all the teachers. The same lesson plans given to all the teachers helps us. Lesson plans prepared by the best of the teachers. And what we have seen is, doing this, we have managed to see that results across all the three schools are the same. I've been consistent for many years.
So important to utilize what you have and not just keep on aspiring for more and more facilities. And this is so important in a budget constrained environment. You have to look at expansion, but there are so many ways in which you can expand. You can create more campuses as you go along, or you can simply build taller and taller buildings and house everybody in the same place. How does a budget school, if I could use the term, actually find the right balance? Number one. Number two is that there are so many things that we are talking about in terms of technology infrastructure, school, sports grounds, and this and that and the other. Expensive coaches, good coaches are very expensive as well. Not everyone can afford to have everything on their own. Is there a way schools can actually collaborate with the nearby schools or like-minded schools to sort of average out the cost over, several institutions?
While collaboration is a 21st century skill, I don't see schools collaborating too much these days. Possibly we'll have to ask Rohit sir whether, in his schools, around his schools, what is the scenario like, sir?
We believe that collaboration is the key for schools, and there is no shame in collaborating. There is no shame in learning from other schools. Uh, there are so many instances of Children's Academy going and picking up a program from some other school and making it our own. So there is a very successful program in our school which is called State Darshan, which we have gone to some other school, picked up that idea, and that school used to do it for 2 hours. We do it for across 2 days. So that is one part of learning from schools. So learning from schools will happen when we go with a mindset to other schools to learn. So Children's Academy as a school has always been a resource center for other schools to come in. We keep our doors open. We invite other schools to come to our school and understand our processes. And since we transitioned from state board to ICC, we still are conveners of state board run schools.
Okay.
So where, for example, there are 100 schools in Kandvili, Borivali and Daisar. We many times these principals of 100 schools visit Children's Academy, and we have resource training for those schools. The teachers of those schools, because they are coming from state board, Hindi schools, Marathi medium schools, we call them to our school and we train them on new pedagogies which Children's Academy is using. So maybe, and not only pedagogies, we also train them on safety aspects, on use on aspects of POXO as well as now POSH.
And as far as vertical or, vertical growth and, starting another branch, I think there are, in 2016, a National Building Code came in. And, there are a lot of restrictions now on schools in terms of, having infrastructural norms. So as far as possible, and yeah, that's what is different in, international boards and Indian boards. A lot of Indian boards put in conditions of infrastructure that it should be like this, where in international boards like IB say it should be adequate or enough. So I think, it's for a school promoter to decide how many children can be housed in one particular branch and what is adequate and enough. So, and once you are like, you've set your feet right, then, possibly expanding the same thing. There are a lot of people who kind of, keep buying the adjacent land and grow. And at the same time, like what they have done, people, going to Thane, going to Ashok Nagar or, other places. But what is most important is to first understand the area. We are, in Hindi you say कि हमारे देश में हर 5 कोस पे पानी बदल जाता है. So I think, every area has got its own challenges in terms of, what people can afford, what is their purchasing power, what kind of people stay there, how far, can they send their children. So a feasibility study is required where, you understand the area, people, their, ability to pay, and what they're looking at. What is the competition? If there are 5 schools already available, see, school is a social infrastructure. So you should not build just more than enough. So if there is adequate schools in the area, you collaborate and, you learn from them, teach from them. But if there's an area where there's a school required or people are looking at, right, so, parent survey, teacher survey, all these things, as an organization we do, and kind of, come across or come up with a school which is just adequate and needed in that area.
So don't overdo and don't underdo. Do the right
Yes,
things, right?
absolutely.
And that's most important. I think, today, and especially after COVID, digital transformation is not a nice thing to have, right? It's something that you must have. Otherwise, you simply don't progress. So it's whether you can afford it or we can afford not afford it, that's beside the point. But if you really want to run a proper school, you need all of that, right? What is your word of advice for people who are actually going through this journey?
There has been a linear expansion and it has gone on and on and on and it keeps evolving. So the most important thing is that you should know what is affordable to you and which gives you the maximum return and which can actually be used. As this pointed out by Dr. Dhirendra, that don't go for fancy things. If it is not going to, it may not last. It may get you an admission for a year or 2 years. After that, people know that this doesn't work in the school, and then the whole thing collapses. So it has to be a very thoughtful process. Technology keeps changing, new things keep coming. Everybody comes, the salespeople, they come and make you feel inadequate if your school doesn't have it. So they make you feel, it's more like the FOMO, the fear of missing out. मेरे school में नहीं है, so don't worry about it. You require to be patient and you require technology has to be, choosing technology is a very, very should be a time consuming process and not be a instant decision which many managements do. And especially I would say it should not be done without involving the teachers. You don't sit in your office and decide what technology the teacher is going to use. People have walked into disaster by doing that or spend a lot of money and got no returns. So we as a school have been I think the best users of technology. When I could say, not today, in the year 2001, 2, 3, maybe around that time, we were Intel Teach to the Future winners, all India winners, when we didn't even have proper computers and we were competing with big Delhi schools, ICSE, and we were a state board school, small school, and we won for 2 consecutive years. First year it was the second prize and next year it was the first prize.
To sort of summarize what you're saying, the technology has been evolving over a period of time. It's
Yes.
not that it's a new thing,
Yeah.
but I think the most important factor is that you said is don't get into a FOMO. Don't look at what the next guy is doing and say what is good for him is good for me. Doesn't work. Do what is right for you. Plan accordingly. Cut your coat according to the cloth that is available and make sure that you go back and look at the basics That's the fundamentals of the education, the marks, as well as the holistic experience that the child really has. I mean, these are the three core pillars on which you can actually build and go on your growth story. Awesome. So we're talking about expansion, modernization, digitization, giving the best experience to a child. All of this costs money. Now, where is it going to come from? Obviously, we have to do a lot of financial planning and maybe even take external finance. Let me ask Dr. Mishra that the 65 schools that he's helped come up, what does he really look at it in terms of the importance of this particular aspect, and how do schools actually go about doing it?
So money has a great characteristic that it is never enough, right? So I think while we do anything for that matter, anything that we do which involves money, usually it's never enough. And I think I've seen the growth of schools ever since 2006. Uh, Banks used to support schools. They used to lend money, and I think failure of engineering colleges in 2010-11 kind of made banks to think that education lending is not really a great thing. And I think after 2015-16, even schools started failing. So currently banks, currently schools are in the negative list in terms of banks lending it to institutions. But that doesn't solve the purpose. Expansion needs money, so people go to unorganized money lending, which is not really the greatest thing to do, because the kind of so my experience is, a new school, 5 years IRR is never going to be more than 5-6%, and 10 years IRR is never going to be more than 10-11%, which is just about the bank interest rates. That's why we say that education is not a bankable project. So I think, in my understanding, school owners should have at least 50-60% of the capital investment out of their own retained earnings or through their own sources, on which they shouldn't be calculating the interest. And the remaining can be funded via the NBFCs or institutions which are not really bank, or even if a bank is willing to lend you money, why not? But I think having bank as a partner is, or any NBFC as a partner, is a boon to an institution which is credible, has a proven track record, and needs capital not to establish but to grow. So I think my understanding is that schools should look at institutional investors or NBFCs or banks for their growth.
So plan well, but don't be shy of taking external help in terms of finance, so long as you kind of stick to the basic parameters and not demand too much.
So KV sir, let's do a role reversal now. You've been asking us questions, and we know that you have 30 years of experience in banking and financial sector, handling various portfolios, and you mentioned that decent amount of about 25%, if I'm not wrong, of your asset book is. KV sir, as a founder of a financial institution, what do you advise to these affordable private schools or budget schools? How should they plan their finances?
I think it's so important to understand this, because at the end of the day, we are talking about schools being a social infrastructure, providing something which is important for the society and so on and so forth. But all of that costs money, as I mentioned. So, clear cut, proper financial planning, staying within one's means, and making sure that you are on top of your finances is so important for everybody. Now, when you really look at it, uh, teachers who become educationists or owners of trustees of education institutions typically are very good on academics. They know what to do with the children, but they really don't know how to muster the money. So typically we see situations where a wonderful school actually fails because of poor financial management. So careful financial planning is so important. I think there are certain characteristics that a school really has in terms of how the cash flows actually happen. A typical school would have a large amount of money coming in at the time of the starting of the academic year, because then the admission fees and a certain large chunk of money comes in then. Then there is a lull. And then towards the end, when the exams are actually happening, you will see the parents coming back and paying any arrears of the fees and so on and so forth. So you have a irregular cash flow inflow. But every month you have to pay your teacher's salary, the other staff salary, you have to pay for your electricity bill and stuff like that. How do you manage this particular mismatch? If you spend too much money at the beginning of the academic year because you have too much money, then you really don't have money for the lull period. So, you have to maintain your cash reserves. Do not spend too much money because you have money, but keep something for a rainy day for tomorrow. So, and most importantly, do not please overspend on the jazzy things which actually don't much add value, right? Which we spoke about earlier. Don't do because someone else is doing it. Stay within your resources, maintain your cash flow, and if you have taken a loan for your expansion, make sure that you pay your EMI every month, because one day default kills your credit score and you will not be able to build a third floor or the fourth floor of your building. You will stay at 2, right? The other factor is that you have to ensure that you spend most of your money on the teachers' salaries and not on the other infrastructure and other kind of facilities which actually do not add value to the school's core. They may be looking nice, but it will not bring you the second, third, fourth year's admission as we spoke about earlier. The last factor is that you should look for an expansion at a situation where your classrooms are full, and in a classroom of, let's say, 30 people, you are squeezing in the 35th and the 40th guy. So, when to say in a very simple way, then the students are forced to sit on the floor is the time when you look for an expansion, because you have established a certain credibility among the parent clientele that your school is good and that's why they are sending more and more children, but you don't have the infrastructure. That's the right time for you to take the leap of faith and build more classrooms, because you already have an existing clientele which you are not able to accommodate in your current facilities. So, if you go through some of these simple things, stay within your means, manage your cash flow mismatch is so important, and expand at the right time. If you maintain that, and of course, don't ever default on your credit score. Okay. You also mentioned about don't take too many informal loans and stuff like that, except for very rare situations. There are institutions like Profectus and certain other institutions which look at school as a core focus area for them to expand and to lend. There is a certain amount of social aspect which also is there, because we feel proud that a particular school which was in a rundown condition has today morphed into or changed into a wonderful school and have been able to increase their fees as well because of the better facility that they were able to afford due to the loan we have given to them, and has now gone up in terms of the league tables in the district and the area is so important. And it gives us a lot of happiness to see a school actually grow. So, taking loans is good. It's not a bad thing anymore, not even in schools. But take the loans, spend it in the wise manner. Make sure that you attract better children, more sticky children, and reward your teachers very well so that you're able to hold on to them. And put off money for tomorrow. You need capital. You need to have retained earnings so that you are part funding at least the next expansion. Those are the mantras that I would like to.
Interesting. That's a great piece of advice, word of wisdom from the finance man. Now, that compels me to ask one more question. What do financial institutions, banks, or NBFC like yours look for as a qualifier to lend money to any educational institution?
See, I think very important factor is that you have to plan ahead in advance, right? You will have a certain amount of corpus that you have built up because of your first stage or first phase of growth. How much of that is available with you for further investment? You can leverage whatever you have. Let's say you have 100 rupees in your corpus. You can take another 200 as loan and put that entire 300 into the second phase of growth. And the 300 eventually will lead to more reserves in your hand of probably 500. And use that 500 to borrow another 1000, make it into 1500. So, it kind of becomes uh, an exercise in aggregation, expansion, aggregation, expansion. So, this is the kind of cycle that you really follow. If this virtuous cycle kicks in the right manner, your growth story will not stop. Now, very important point that you mentioned when you first spoke about finances and all of that. Yes, unfortunately, in India, schools are very important sector, very well respected sector, but the banks don't lend because they are on the negative list because of past experiences, and certain states also have this problem of trust property not being mortgageable and stuff like that. So these are some of the issues that we have to contend with. But good news is that beyond banks, the NBFC sector is now coming up significantly well. Definitely, we are saying that we will add as much value as we can to the schools. Uh, so it's not that banks don't lend; they don't lend adequately. So you will always have a gap. So probably with your first resources, when you start to build a certain amount of corpus, you go to an NBFC, you borrow more, you grow your infrastructure, and over a period of time, you will have to have a mix of banks and NBFCs to fund your growth. Everything depends upon how you are managing your funds in the right way. Whether it's a bank or an NBFC, it doesn't matter. Most people will look at who are you. Is this a marginal business for you? Because if you have 10 other businesses and school is one of your things, probably the confidence level in the running of the school would be a little low. But if your livelihood is primarily 80, 90, 100% dependent on the school, I think that sends a very positive signal to the NBFC or the bank that is lending to you. So, how important is the school to you will be a question that any NBFC or bank would ask. And which means that you will not divert money away from the school, you will invest or reinvest the corpus fund back into the school for expansion. That's so important for me to get comfort on. So, establish the right kind of governance, establish the right kind of financial discipline, and do not treat school as a marginal business for you to run along with 10 other things. So, if those are the things that are there, I don't think funding from even a formal source of finance is not a problem. Informal sources are always there, but as you rightly said, it's a costly affair. But NBFCs and banks will be willing to lend for your growth and expansion should you stick to these basics. And we are very much happy to be of assistance to any of the schools that you may be assisting, or any of them that you have come across with, to guide them, if nothing else, right? Financing is the secondary part. At least the right kind of guidance can be provided to the right school.
Thank you. I think, people like you are very rare in this industry where, people like you can, guide school promoters as to how to use the money wise. Thank you so much.
Well, we've spoken about all aspects: financial, capacity building, giving a good experience. But at the end of the day, education institutions are what make the children the leaders of tomorrow. Ethics plays such an important role. Let's look at how Dr. Mishra sees this particular aspect. Do schools which have a wonderful business model succeed, or do schools which have a wonderful ethical model do better?
I would say both. Well, as a school promoter, you're telling the parent, give me your child, I'll make his future. You can't be seen experimenting and you can't be compromising anywhere. So I think both a great business model as well as values and ethics, rather values and ethics first, should make a great school.
Do good values and ethics actually attract customers?
Absolutely, yes. A parent who himself does maybe 5 wrong things expects the school promoter, the school teacher, and the child to do everything right.
So it's also a parent's expectation that the ethical standards be kept very high.
Very much.
Because the institutions actually are the ones which build character of this country for the future. And what you're saying, therefore, makes a lot of sense to me. How do I put ethics in front of everything else? And Rohit sir, as an institution which has been running for so many years, 50 years plus, and you also talked about maintenance of the culture being such an important factor of continuity of a school. How have you managed to maintain that ethical standards so far? And what is the sort of legacy are you creating that which gives you confidence that this ethical standards will be maintained in future as well?
As a school or as an individual, I believe that infrastructure of a school will change, curriculum will change, technology will come and go. But the core values which your school has been established on, or any institution has been established on, they need not change and should not change. So my father started the school with some ethics, with some values, and there are certain things like hard work, discipline, uh, which are a part of our blood. So, and I believe that it's very difficult for me to make a standard operating procedure for inculcating values or ethics. It's not possible. But uh, if you say, however, how have we, I and Rohan, maintained the legacy of ethics and values? The only thing we can say is that as leaders, we have tried to walk the talk. So at the if the top management walks the talk, and this is seen subconsciously and consciously by every stakeholder at 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So when we talk to the parents and we respect the parents, when we talk to a child and we respect the child, when we look at the potential of the child, and we are transparent with the parents, then I don't require to give a lecture on morality or ethics or value systems to my teacher. The coordinator, the teacher, my ancillary staff look at me and Rohan, and automatically they understand when the bosses are not doing this, this is not done by me. So there are some things which cannot be taught. It is only walk the talk, and automatically everybody in your institution will start following. So for us, when we are looking at technology, when we are looking at even changing the uniform of a child, the only question is it good for the child? So from that question, your ethics, your good values, everything comes out.
I mean, it's so simply put, but so profound. And, as parents, we all would have been told that, if you want to teach your child something, don't teach, just do it. Because the child will look at you, copy you, and then replicate, which is exactly what words where you said. And it's so important for us to keep that as a core value in our education institution. Yes, there is a certain financial aspect, there's a growth aspect, there is competition, but at the end of the day, education institutions are a little different than a standard industry. And let's keep that in mind. For that will help us to grow not just at a fast pace, but in the right manner. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. While we practice that in our schools, let's also practice in this podcast. I think progress mantras are never full without a certain amount of fun element. Okay, let me ask Rohan sir, who's been very, very serious in his answers. I'm sure you can relax a little bit, right? So let me ask you some questions that would be challenging. Now, in your long experience, what are those 5 must do things? Top 5.
I think my answer will still be very serious because it is must do. So first, as a uh, school, as a management, I would say, put children first in all your decisions. Whatever decision, it is not for the parent, it is not for the school, it is not for the teachers. It is all your decisions should ask one question is, what is that this for my student or child in the school? So that would be the first do, I would say. Second, I would say is uh, invest in good teachers. Invest in that training. Dr. Mishra has already spoken about it. There is nothing,
Better than that.
no other investment that you do that will give you the kind of returns that this investment can do. Third, I would say be in touch with the progress that is happening in the field of education, the research that is happening, the pedagogies that are changing, everything that's happening in the education industry. Keep yourself abreast with this. Attend seminars, go to workshops, at least have the information. That's important.
Mm.
There's a fourth one I would say is uh, keep yourself abreast with the laws of the country, the rules, the regulations, what are required. They can put you into serious trouble. And fifth, uh, I would say is keep yourself abreast with the change of technology that is happening. It moves very fast. It's very confusing. So You have to keep pace. You have to have the information. Don't misinterpret it with what I said about technology earlier. Information is good. Keep yourself abreast. Decisions can be slow, but information is a must.
So we spoke about must do's. What about those ones which you should avoid? Don't do's, at least 3 of them.
Don't do, I would say, is don't prioritize profit over your core values.
Okay.
That doesn't help. I would say don't underestimate the power of having a open office, open door for your staff, your students, your every stakeholder. If they can't approach you, you will never know what is happening actually in your school or it's in any industry. I think we have got great examples from right from the Tata downwards to the values that they had with this, about this, interacting with the stakeholders. Third one, I would say, don't over depend on data. Go with your gut feelings. We have seen people looking at too much data, especially with assessments. Don't go too much with that. It's good to be having, remember that this data keep changing for variety of reasons. You cannot, it is not identifiable that you teach in this way and you'll get this mark or this. It is very difficult. So go with your gut feeling of what is happening with your school on the whole.
Great. 2 turning points in Children's Academy.
2 turning points would be, one is the getting enrolled with the Wipro program which came up, or that is the Wipro Teachers Training Program. I think it was called Wipro, what was it called? Wipro Applying Thoughts in School. We did that in around 2000. It was funded by Wipro, carried out by some other company. But that was the first major training program for our schools to bring in new pedagogies, new this. And from there, we never stopped training our teachers. We understood the value of that training which we did at that time. Of course, it was free for us because Wipro funded it. But that's our major training changing point for our school.
The second one?
And the second one I would say is when Mr. Bhavin introduced us to Selvent, which I have already spoken, Mr.
Family
Sudarshan and Gaurav.
Awesome.
That gave a structure to our this to move like a well-oiled machinery, with everybody knowing what is exactly my role and what everybody trying to contribute and ensure that I do well in my part of the game and we win the game.
Lastly, 2 learnings that you have got from your son. Just 2 words. If
My son, yes, a lot of learning from the young generation. One, I think, I would say is leverage technology.
Okay.
It makes your life easier, definitely. Second, I would say is to be cool. He is much more cooler than I am. I am more of a person who works on impulse.
as the generation would say, just chill.
As the generation says, just chill. It's okay.
Awesome.
Nothing is going to happen. It's okay. Take your time.
Thank you so much. So, Dr. Mishra, again, top 5 must do's.
Well, I'll be very precise. Right ethics and values, investing in teacher development, even if they leave, creating right budgeting, most important, finance is the lifeblood of any system, parent-school relationship. Schools, we don't call it as parents-teacher meeting, we call it PTM, we call it as PIP, partners in progress. I think that mindset that, and you orient your parents also that we are partners in progress, not that you have outsourced, the parenting to us. So partners in progress. And I think the last but most important, keeping up with the time.
Okay. Those 3 things that you should not do.
So 3 things to school promoters which they should not do. Number one, don't enter into the academic area if you are not an academician. Number two would be academic dishonesty. I know there are school promoters who tell teachers, just give more marks, you don't pay taxes on giving marks. Academic dishonesty. I think our times, we were always struggling in grade 9 and 11 and grade 4 and grade 7, and we passed out boards with the flying colors. These days, in most of the schools, it's the other way around. And the third thing is treating a teacher wrong. I think, the reason why I moved out of formal school system was just that I was seeing a lot of schools coming up, not really treating the teachers right. So these three.
So, other than these three, two common mistakes the school managements typically do.
One is not walking the talk.
Okay.
Second thing is wrong financial planning.
Okay. Two pieces of advice that you would give to schools.
Since you are, as I've mentioned earlier, you have the responsibility to develop a child. Don't be seen doing things wrong. Do right thing right the first time. And when you're promising a parent that you're going to take care of his child's future, don't be dishonest.
Lastly, two success instances from a school that you consulted.
I think one school that we created, a new school, was in Shillong, where typically Northeast school education is very, very traditional, run by or driven by the missionaries. We created a holistic 21st century school in Shillong, where almost NEP came in 2020 August. We launched that school during COVID in 2020 April. The first class happened online on 13th of April. But I think we were almost NEP compliant. So I think that was one success story that we have. And second one was in back of beyond place in Yavatmal, which happens to be one of the most backward districts of India. Not even Yavatmal proper, say about 70 kilometers away, a sub-district of Yavatmal called Pusad. We reached that place. There was somebody running an affordable private school with 700-800 children, barely able to deliver things right, though they intended to. Both of them being doctors, they started school because they wanted good education for their children. I think when we entered, we re-engineered their financial planning, and we told them that you want to run a good school, not a cheap school. So re-engineered their financial planning, and today so we got in touch with them in 2018 or 19, but today in 2025 they are with 2,000 children with a decent margin. If you ever see that school, the earliest building that we constructed 2 years ago with massive 6 crores investment is no less than any metro city's early childhood care center. So nursery to grade to a separate section, and that's how we could increase the capacity of the school 2.5 times by doing the right financial planning.
Awesome. This really is, I'm sure this is a wonderful experience and you feel joyous about having actually done this as well. At the end of the day, it's a question of doing something, and when you see the fruition of that happening, that gives you the maximum amount of satisfaction as a consultant, as an educator, as a financier, and so on and so forth. It's a all-round happiness that you really get far beyond your business objectives, right?
True.
So, progress mantras from Profectus Capital. Today we covered the educational institutions, and we saw how educational institutions can be set up, how they can be run, and how they can be growing, and what are the things that they need to do, and what are those things that they should not be doing. I do hope this actually gives you enough amount of progress mantras for you to follow for growing your own institution, starting an institution, and modifying your institutions and putting it on the right track at the right pace. All for the benefit of those little children who trust you and come to you for making them from nothing to something. Building future leaders of India is your task, and it's the most noble task that I can think of. And let's use these learnings from Rohan sir, Rohit sir, Dr. Mishra, take it forward and implement it in our lives, and may success be with you. Thank you.